Oh, hey, sorry, I didn't see you there. You have a habit for showing up at the perfect time. I was actually just about to check the weather today. I got some shots I need to shoot for an upcoming video, and I'm hoping the weather's perfect, so let's check that out now, and, 120 degrees? That's 48 degrees Celsius for you nerds out there. That can't be right. There's no way it can be that hot, right? Well, when the world becomes lethal lava land, that can only mean one thing. It's summer. Where I live, it gets very, very hot, and it also becomes very dangerous to be outside for long periods of time. So we've got no choice but to stay indoors. But that really puts a damper on things. I had a lot of plans, and now they're canceled. What am I gonna do today, then? I know, when the weather's getting hot and going outside sucks, there's always a series of games I know I can fall back on to get those cozy vibes going. Games that I feel peak enjoyment of during the summer. That being Animal Crossing. Life sims are a genre of game you either love, or you just don't understand the appeal of. Luckily for me, I freaking love life sims. Animal Crossing is one of those life sims that there really isn't anything like. You see all types of games trying to be like The Sims or Harvest Moon, but I've personally never seen a series try to replicate Animal Crossing's style without trying to be a parody of it. While the series isn't known for being this genre-defining, innovative titan that changes the landscape of gaming as we know it with each entry, each game does have some form of merit that comes with it. Nowadays, the series is one of Nintendo's big names, but back when I got into the series, it was one that very few people cared about or even knew. When you asked the question, do you play Animal Crossing? You'd always get the answer, what's that? My first Animal Crossing was the second one all the way back on the DS, but I have put a ton of hours into all the games. The first three titles especially probably being the ones I've sunk the most time into. Today we'll be taking a look at the first Animal Crossing game on the Nintendo GameCube. I plan to cover the entire series eventually, but I just didn't want to homogenize everything into one very long video. Also, these games are huge time sinks. They require a lot of time to be spent in them, and I don't have nearly the free time yet to be playing all the Animal Crossing games and putting out a video in a timely manner. So, this was the best next solution. The game opens up with a guitar-playing talking dog who begins dumping his life philosophies on you about how cool living on your own feels. I would be concerned if it didn't. Next, we find ourselves on some train when some rando walks up to us to confirm the date and time. I don't know what it is, but for some reason these early Animal Crossing games always get it wrong. My system is always set to the correct date and time, and yet I always find myself resetting the in-game clock. This stranger's name is Rover, by the way. He then begins to engage in one of my top 5 fears of all time. Awkward social interactions! This guy wants to know everything about you. What you're doing on the train, where you're moving to, your financial status, your name. What are you, the government? Get off my back! You might think I'm being rude to this guy, but he makes fun of my name and the fact that I'm poor. Although our character is moving to a new town without even having bought a freaking house yet, and it's not like they know that there's a house waiting for them either. They completely packed up shop, got on a train, and just sort of hoped things would work out, so maybe Rover might be onto something here. Luckily for us though, Rover's got us covered as he knows someone who could hook us up with a house. I always knew answering overly personal questions from strangers on our train would pay off one day! So after a quick phone call, Rover informs us that his friend will be waiting for us at the train station, which coincidentally we begin to pull into. We say our final farewells to Rover, not even once thanking him for being the sole reason we won't be sleeping outside tonight, and we grab our things and begin to pull up to the station. Depending on how we answered Rover's questions, the game will generate how our character will look to better suit our personalities. I don't remember what determines what, so I'm excited to see what we're gonna get. Wow, it looks just like me. Here we are, the great beautiful town of Smelly. Is it weird the air is oddly pleasant here? This is Tom Nook, the guy Rover said would hook us up with a house. I'm not too sure his outfit wouldn't get him ticketed for public indecency, but hey, who am I to question his attire when I'm only in this predicament because I put a little too much faith into this world. He brings us to the 4 houses he had built, which are conveniently located right in front of the train station, and tells us to take our pick. Oh man, that's so nice of him. That's awesome. What's wrong with them? Oh, I see. Not only are all these houses near identical, but they don't even have any proper flooring or walling, just the exposed bare building materials. Plus, the space is so tiny the word cozy doesn't even come close to describing them. Yeah, Tom Nook, I think I found out why you can't sell these houses. It's because they suck! Oh well, it's not like we have much of a choice between this and sleeping outside, so I guess I'll take it. Tom Nook gives us our final tally for the place, which is about 19,800 bells. We, of course, being the geniuses we so obviously are, only brought with us 1,000 bells. So, our main character clearly had the foresight to assume that a house would cost money, but completely missed the mark by a lot because houses cost way more than $1,000. This causes Tom Nook to really laugh at us, and like, he's laughing now, but you'll soon find that this one villager will probably be the smartest protagonist he'll encounter in the entire rest of the series. We're clearly in a pickle here, and Tom Nook doesn't just want to leave us out in the cold, so he comes up with an idea. Free labor! Yeah! Tom Nook decides to take us on as a temporary intern to work off our mortgage. Well, I say work off our mortgage, but he only ends up having us do another 1,000 bells worth of errands before letting us free. I know that sounds like a lot, but you only actually do like 5 chores for him in total, with 2 brief tasks in between where he wants you to meet everyone in the village and he wants you to help other people in need. After like 30 minutes of work, you're set free. So now what? That's the funny part. Unlike most normal video games, there isn't actually an obvious end goal to work towards. Once you're set loose in Animal Crossing, that's just kinda it. You're expected to make do with the world around you and to just, you know, live life. And seeing as how this is a life sim, that part seems actually pretty obvious now that I'm thinking about it. I guess technically you could consider getting the final house upgrade the end goal, but even then the game has a ton of stuff to incentivize consistent playing even after the fact. As you play, more and more villagers will come to live in your village. All of the villagers in this game are pretty interesting. I love how most of the villagers in your town will either be pretty standoffish or will just kinda be mildly interested in your presence when you first moved in. But yeah, makes sense. You did just move in after all. There's no reason for them to trust you won't be some crazy axe-wielding murderer. What? Just because I moved to a new town in a rush, with no money to my name, no identification, and no permanent housing plans, doesn't mean I'm some evil axe murderer. That's crazy! My crowbar's more efficient. One of my favorite things about these early Animal Crossing games is how much of an impact villagers have. A large part of what makes these games so enjoyable were the villagers. While in New Leaf and New Horizons, they act more like window dressing than actual neighbors, in the older games they acted more like actual people, all living in the same town as you. It helped to cement that you were part of the community rather than in control of it. I love how you have to build your relationships with your villagers. The more you become closer friends, the more tasks and conversations they'll have with you. They'll also build different relationships with the other villagers in the town. You'll casually catch them chatting with the other villagers, and they'll either gossip or say something nice about their neighbors depending on their standing with said neighbor. It's really cool and makes the world feel alive. Speaking of the world, you probably have noticed something unique about this Animal Crossing's world. I was kind of debating on whether or not I was going to address it here or when we cover the next game, but who knows when we'll get to that next one, so I'll talk about it here. From Wild World and onward, the Animal Crossing worlds would take on a sort of rolling pin style. The original Animal Crossing, though, was a top-down map that renders things in segmented screens, or as the game calls them, acres. When the sequel began development on the DS, it brought a lot of quality of life features that bettered the series, one of those being the rolling pin style world. Now, don't quote me on this, but I believe this change was made out of fears that the DS screen would just be too small for players to be able to see where they were going. So the rolling pin style was created so that players could see where they were going at all times. I don't think it was originally meant to stay, but the developers and fans loved it so much that they decided to keep it as the new way to design Animal Crossing worlds, which I think personally was for the better. It helps the series stand out even more. How do you feel about interior decoration? I don't know. I try to keep out of controversial topics. As you go about your daily routine, you'll most likely accumulate a ton of items and furniture. Oh no, what's this? You think the furniture is cool and worth keeping, but your inventory is just so full? Well, rest your worries because I have just the handy-dandy place for you. Your house is the perfect place to store and display your stuff. What's that? You say your house is too tiny, and you can't place all your items? Well, no worries. Tom Nook is to the rescue because he's offering to expand your house so you can store even more things, all for a small fee, of course. But no worries, unlike normal loaners or banks, Tom Nook doesn't charge interest and will let you take your sweet-ass time paying him back. So I know it's a funny thing to joke about and give slack to Tom Nook, but honestly, he's not that bad of a guy. Sure, make all the jokes you want about him being a loan shark or part of the mafia, but he was able to lend us a house last minute, and sure, he did make us work off some of it, but he absolutely could have kept us until we worked all of it off. Plus, a lot of the chores he had us do was just to get us familiar with our neighbors in the village itself. I mean, his first job for you is to say hi to everyone. Plus, there's the fact that he doesn't even charge interest or even pester you with notices to pay your house off in a timely manner. In fact, it doesn't even seem like he cares if you pay it off at all. He gets a lot of crap for the community, but honestly, I've never seen him as the bad guy that they paint him out to be. I mean, sure, it was annoying that we had to see him at the start of every new game and do a work for him, but I just can't bring myself to hate him. Wait, never mind. I just remembered he does child labor. I retract everything I just said about him. Decorating and designing your house is the other major gameplay mechanic. Customization is a big part of Animal Crossing. But what really makes the original 3 games for me is that perfect balance between life sim and house flipper. While I didn't really care much for the decorating aspect when I was a kid, as an adult I found it to be way more fun than I used to, but I still prefer the more life sim side. A big selling point of the game was the ability to see each other's towns. Yeah, even as far back as the original Animal Crossing on GameCube, visiting each other's villages was a pretty big feature. That train station isn't for show, you can actually use it to travel from town to town. The GameCube didn't come with an internal modem, and the Ethernet accessory wouldn't be available until much later into its lifespan, so you couldn't just simply connect to the internet and visit your friends that way. The way you would actually do it is that you would have your friend come over, bring their memory card with the Animal Crossing save file in it, and put it into slot B. Now, I wish I could show you what traveling to other towns looks like firsthand, but I don't know anyone who still has their Animal Crossing save file on hand, and I don't own a secondary memory card. But what I can show you is the Game Boy connectivity. Yeah, that's right, this game here has features locked exclusively behind the Game Boy Advance link cable, so let's check some of those out, shall we? If you plug your Game Boy Advance into your GameCube, you summon everyone's favorite seafaring turtle, Cap'n. Cap'n will allow you to traverse overseas to a remote island located far from your village. There you can actually get some really neat items and meet a new villager. I'm also pretty sure this is the only way you can actually get coconuts in this game. You might also be able to get them via a letter sent randomly by one of your villagers, but I'm pretty sure that's super uncommon and this is a way more reliable method. You can also save your island temporarily to the Game Boy Advance and, look at it? I guess I'm not really sure what this does. You have a cursor and you can tap around on the island, but it doesn't really do anything, and once you turn off your Game Boy, the island is wiped from existence, because it's only downloaded to the device's RAM. I really love the different sea shanties Cap'n sings to you as you wait for the game to load the island. He gives you his sagely words of advice through the method of song. He really knows how to make a somewhat inconvenient load time seem less somewhat inconvenient. Now, one thing I gotta show you in regards to the Game Boy are the e-reader cards. I know, I'm as disappointed as you are. Nintendo's always been trying to incorporate physical accessories into their games, and the e-reader was another one of those failed attempts, as the technology to make it as convenient as it would be today just wasn't there. Think of these as early prototypes for amiibo cards. You would plug the e-reader into the cartridge slot in your Game Boy, and you would use the cards you purchased separately to unlock goodies in a handful of Nintendo games. From what I remember, the Animal Crossing e-reader cards only gave you the NES titles you couldn't win in the raffle. They plan to do multiple waves of the Animal Crossing cards, as evidenced by the fact that there are still a good handful of NES titles that you can't access due to the e-reader being discontinued pretty early on in its life. The original Animal Crossing is just so jam-packed with things to do. I could just sit here and go on and on about all the little things I did during just the few days I spent playing the game for this video. But the video has to end at some point. You can spend hundreds upon hundreds of hours in this game and never get bored. That says a lot, considering this is probably the most content-light Animal Crossing in the series. Before we wrap up this episode though, there appears to be one thing I neglected to mention. A thing that is probably just as iconic as Tom Nook itself. Every Saturday night, at around 7 p.m., if you show up to the train station with some spare time, they say a dog will play you a tune. If you're willing to listen, of course.
Me oh na, na me oh now me.
And that was Animal Crossing. I gotta say, it was a real joy coming back to this game. It's so cozy. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully I'll see you in the next review, but until then, have a great rest of your day. Now, if you excuse me, I gotta start dealing with the bullies that have begun accumulating outside of my house before they break the walls and come kill me. So, I guess I'll see you then.